Cheating wife confesses and tries to open our marriage. Her parents are convincing me to agree. Am I sleeping right now or what is going on? Hey there, I need to spill some things out and ask for advice because I'm really losing it. And before I start, yes, the title is as bizarre as it sounds. My wife, 28F, and I, 30M, have been happily married for 3 years. I thought we were perfectly fine and in love, but a few days ago, she dropped a bombshell on me. She confessed to having an affair, saying she still loves me but wants us to be in an open relationship. I was shattered and asked her to leave so I could process this. Fast forward to this morning, I got a visit from her parents, my in-laws. I've always had a good relationship with them and hoped they would back me up and help convince my wife that this wasn't fair to our marriage. Boy, was I in for a surprise. Her dad, a man I've always respected, started the conversation. He confessed to me that their marriage had been saved by agreeing to the same terms my wife was suggesting. They had entered into an open relationship years ago, and he said it had actually made their bond stronger. He told me that he wanted the same for us and that accepting this would be a sign of love and maturity. That I was dumbfounded, still trying to process this when her mother chimed in. And her words, they were just brutal. She outright told me that I wasn't satisfying her daughter's needs and that I was inadequate. She said I was being selfish and unloving by refusing to accept the new arrangement. Guys, I felt emasculated, betrayed, and confused. This isn't what I signed up for when I said, I do. I love my wife, but I can't just blindly accept infidelity. This isn't a lifestyle that I want, and it feels like an unfair and sudden burden that's been thrust upon me. I feel like my world has been turned upside down, and I'm being asked to celebrate it as if it's some great epiphany. Please, Reddit, any advice would be much appreciated. How do I handle this situation? Do I agree to try this open relationship to save my marriage, or should I stick to my guns and risk the possibility of ending my marriage? Or is there any other way to resolve this issue? Update. Hey, Reddit, brace yourselves for another unexpected twist. It involves my mother, and it's not pretty. Today, I got a surprise visit from my mother, accompanied by my mother-in-law. They walked in, and I could feel an ominous atmosphere settle. My mother, usually a jovial and loving woman, had a stern expression. Son, she began, her tone firm yet gentle. We've been discussing your situation. Yeah, I've noticed, I replied, crossing my arms. What's your take, Mom? She shared a glance with my mother-in-law, then sighed. I believe it might be best if you considered the arrangement your wife is suggesting. I was stunned. You're on their side? Why? Well, she paused. I've always been concerned that maybe you wouldn't be able to satisfy your wife due to your physical inadequacy. My mouth fell open. Here was my mother, the woman who raised me, echoing my mother-in-law's cruel words. I felt a rush of betrayal, sadness, and embarrassment. I asked them both to leave, needing some time alone. Feeling like my world was spinning, I called my father. We weren't the closest, but he'd always been straightforward and honest with me. I quickly explained the situation. Jesus, he grunted over the phone, your mother said that? I can't believe it. Actually, I can. His words took me by surprise. What do you mean, Dad? I'm not shocked she's supporting this. Your mother, she wasn't the most faithful wife herself. It's a big part of why we got divorced when you moved out. The revelations didn't stop. I felt like I was in a terrible dream. We need to talk, son, he continued. Let's get together, meet with a lawyer, and figure out how to handle this. So, that's the next step. My dad and I are scheduled to meet with a lawyer. I'm scared, hurt, and utterly confused. I'll update you after we've met with the lawyer. As always, any advice is welcomed. Update 2. Hello again, Reddit. Your support through all this has been genuinely invaluable, and I want to keep you updated. As I mentioned in my previous post, my father and I plan to meet with a lawyer to discuss the situation. We had the meeting today, and here's what went down. I won't lie, walking into that law office felt overwhelming. But having my father beside me was a comfort. We explained everything to the lawyer, from my wife's desire for an open marriage to the insensitivity of my in-laws and even my own mother's hurtful words. The lawyer, a composed and stern woman, listened attentively. She explained that while the legal landscape around open marriages was complex, there were certain things I needed to be clear about. Firstly, she emphasized that my consent was critical. Regardless of what anyone else says, you have the right to decide what you are comfortable with in your relationship, she stated firmly. Secondly, she made it clear that if we decided to divorce, my wife's infidelity could impact the outcome, depending on our state laws. She also touched upon asset division, alimony, and how any future infidelity could potentially affect these things. Finally, she suggested we consider couples therapy before making any drastic decisions. This was not a legal but a personal suggestion. She explained that therapy could provide a safe and mediated space for my wife and me to express our feelings and thoughts, and perhaps help us find a resolution. However, I'm afraid it's far too late for couples therapy. I spoke with my wife an hour ago over the phone and her response was, well, exactly what you'd expect. Therapy won't change anything, she said coldly. I love you, but this is non-negotiable for me. You either accept it, or it happens without your approval. I was dumbstruck. The woman I had loved and married was standing in front of me, giving me an ultimatum that shook me to my core. In that moment, I felt something in me snap. With a heavy heart, I asked her for a divorce. That, she just smirked and said, I'm not signing any divorce papers. We said, for better or for worse, remember? I couldn't bear it any longer. I packed a bag and left our home, feeling more lost than I ever have in my life. I decided to move in temporarily with my father. The next twist in this saga? My mother showed up at my father's doorstep, berating him for supporting me and encouraging my stubbornness. She insisted that I should be more understanding and flexible in my marriage. That was the final straw. My patience and goodwill, already hanging by a thread, snapped completely. I confronted her and called her out for her hypocrisy and infidelity. You're nothing but a cheating whore, I spat out, the pent-up anger and betrayal pouring out. You have no right to preach about understanding and flexibility. She left in a huff, clearly shaken. I've never spoken to her like that before, but in that moment, it felt justified. So, here I am, living with my dad, unsure of my next step. My wife is refusing to divorce, my mother is unsupportive, and my world has been turned upside down, but I'm not giving up. I'm going to fight for my dignity, for my rights, and for my peace of mind. I'll update you as things progress. In the meantime, any advice or words of encouragement would be much appreciated. Also, to the people saying my post is fake or some kind of creative writing project, thank you for your opinions, but I'm not that creative. If I was, I doubt my wife would be cheating on me. Now it's time for the next story. Story 2. My girlfriend cheated on me. I forgave her for her honesty, but then this happened. How should I live with that? I am really freaking out. Somebody help me. My girlfriend of 5 years has cheated, and I already forgave her. Now I learned that the sex was much worse than I expected, and I don't know how to handle this. It happened about 2 months ago. My girlfriend was at a party at the shared apartment of some of her friends. Nothing special. I wasn't in town as I had to work in a different city. The next day she called me crying and told me that she had cheated. I was shocked. When I came back the day after that, we had a long talk. She didn't tell me much details and I didn't ask for it. She said that she had had a few drinks and just went with the flow and then had sex there. I actually didn't ask with whom. As she seemed to be really sorry, I tried to get over it. It took me some time, but I actually managed to really forgive her and I thought our relationship was on a good track again. Her cheating wasn't a topic at all anymore. I admit that I was wondering about details from time to time, but I didn't want to talk about it and thought that it doesn't matter. However, I was very, very wrong. Yesterday I talked to a guy who was there as well, and he seemed to be very surprised that I had been able to forgive her. I tried to explain to him that I appreciated her honesty and that she never tried to hide it at all. I wasn't able to understand his confusion until I was finally brave enough to ask about details. I almost blacked out when he told me. To cut a long story short, it wasn't just normal sex with one guy. She apparently slept with at least 3 of them and did things she'd never do with me. I still have no words for it. Actually, I thought he was making this up, but he had proof and I can't get this off my mind now. I don't know how to ever cope with this. I know that I didn't ask for details, but it still feels like she lied to me, even though she technically maybe didn't. I hate that I went through a lot of mental trouble to keep this relationship alive and now have to learn this. I am completely freaking out right now. Let's listen to another story. Story 3. My son saw her mother cheated on me with my new employee when I was 5 miles away from home. He told me about this, and I don't mean the son. This is not funny at all. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I are both 26 and we have a 5-year-old son and 10-month-old girl together. I work as one of the managers at an IT company whilst she works as a receptionist at a hospital. She hasn't been working much due to pregnancy and maternity leave. I'm quite an outgoing person whereas she is quite introverted and only really enjoys spending time with close family members, her family plus me and the children, and friends she's known since childhood. On Saturday, July 1, 2023, an ex-employee from my place of work, age 23, came to my house thinking I would be around because he knows I don't work on Saturdays. He wanted to give me important documents that I had left at his house the previous day when we were discussing work-related matters. My wife opened the door and didn't know who he was, so he explained himself that he works for me, and then she allowed him inside and offered him coffee whilst he waits for me. I was at my parents' house 5 miles away. This is what happened next according to this ex-employee as best I can remembering him saying over the phone 2 days ago. Our conversation. Employee: do you know about me and your wife? Me: what do you mean? Explain. Employee: remember that day last month when you weren't home and I came to drop off documents, and sorry because I should have called you beforehand. Me: yes, so what? Employee: after your wife invited me in and offered to make coffee, we began to talk and quickly bonded over literature. She was very friendly, and I know what I'm about to tell you was very wrong of me to do, but we started kissing, and your son, who came into the living room at that moment, then asked who I was, and she told him not to worry, that he should just go watch TV. We then went upstairs and, slept together. Me: are you joking? Because if you're just trying to cause trouble, don't. Employee: no, it's not a lie. I just thought I would tell you because that little boy saw his mother with someone else, and years down the line if you ever did find out, I wouldn't want you to think that I scared a little boy without caring. Remember that your wife is the married one, not me. I didn't force her. Me: I don't believe you at all. Employee: that is why I resigned, July 7th, because I didn't know whether you knew or not and would rather resign than have a sacking on my record. Me: I'll ask her, and if true, I'll deal with you appropriately. Employee: okay, but like I said, I didn't force her. Not did I do anything illegal. You won't hear from me again. Sorry. I was livid with anger and hurt at the same time. This is an employee who only started working for me in May, and I'm certain she never even knew he existed up until that day. I asked her, who denied it at first but then owned up to what happened after she realized the severity of the situation, including the employee quitting. She said she is very sorry and doesn't know what came over her. I then said, apparently our son saw you, and then she began crying. I said to her that I was going to stay with my parents for a few days whilst I decide what to do. My parents and even her family members too are very supportive of me and do not condone what she did. I've seen my son on FaceTime and baby daughter too, and told them that I will be with them soon. I've decided that there is no coming back from this and will definitely get a divorce from my wife, but the only issue is custody and finances. I don't want to be like the many men who get a divorce due to the fault of their wives only to lose the house and only see the kids on the weekends. How do I go about this to ensure I don't lose the house and that I see my kids as equally if not more than her? I live in England. BTW. It's the final story for this video. Let's listen. Story 4. I gave away the house my stepmom lived in while she was on her honeymoon. Welcome home, mommy. I have been reading lots of Reddit lately, especially entitled Parents, but made a new account when I came across this page. I never thought I'd actually try to contribute something. Until now, Reddit has just been my guilty morning coffee read. So here goes. I'm an only son. My mom died of ovarian cancer at only 55 5 years ago. It broke my dad's heart. They had been together since college and were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I'm 22, and am about to graduate college with my degree in chemistry when the main events start to occur. I went to college on a full-ride scholarship. This is important later. My dad met my now stepmom when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital where she spent her final days. My stepmom, Grace, played all the right notes to gain my dad's trust. She was empathetic to him, nurturing, comforting. After my mom passed, I was 17 and old enough to sense that she was just trying to weasel her way into getting my dad's resources, but it was up to my dad if he wanted to be in a relationship with her. I was in my final year of public school and had just won a scholarship to attend college out of the country the following year. My dad mourned my mom for a year, and that whole time Grace would check in on him by phone every month or so, in my opinion to scope out the possibility of sinking her hooks in him. After a year passed, Grace took the gloves off and went hard after my dad. Grace was only 40 when she and my dad started seeing each other. I didn't like her, but at the same time my dad at least didn't seem so depressed anymore, so I tried to be less pessimistic about her and give her the benefit of the doubt. That in my gut I didn't trust her, though, but we are Scandinavian, and at least in my family the son does not tell his father what to do or even offer any opinion. Grace is from the Czech Republic, if you're wondering. That my father was a very successful banker during his career, and amassed quite a portfolio of wealth. I'll spare you the details, but after 6 months of dating, Grace and my father are married. My dad never really got over my mom though, and he was getting weaker and weaker even though he was only 57. Since his health was fading, he called me to him and asked me point blank, "Boy, what do you need to set you up in this life?" I told him I don't need anything, I'm a man and can take care of myself. But what are you even talking about, Dad? You're going to be around for decades yet. I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship to college, so don't worry about giving me any cash. He was dead only a year later at 59. I of course have seen lots of Hollywood movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse wife poisoned him and made him sign over all his money to her, but I really honestly do not think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Grace either, but they knew my dad was totally in love with my mom and that her death utterly broke him. Well, long story short, my dad bequeathed his 5-bedroom house to me even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He gave a small endowment to each of his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of all his existing money to Grace, which amounted to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dad ignored me because he's generous to a fault and still gave me several tens of thousands of dollars, which were of course very useful to me. Grace tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was angry as hell that she didn't get my dad's house, too. That belonged to me, and I had the legal papers to prove it. She was especially mad because we live in an extremely upscale and trendy location, and houses are hard to come by and easily sold for massive profit. During the first few months after my dad's death, I had the nauseating, creepy experience of knowing that Grace was trying to feel me out to see if I might be into a little relationship with her. Gross. She still stayed at the house though, because over the last 3 years she had gotten used to living there and acting like she owned it. And, even though I officially owned it, I was always away at college and only visited my dad's old house once every couple of months, and even then it wasn't to see Grace, but to see my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was really my house, and over the months I think Grace gradually forgot that she really had no legal right to the house. She probably believed that sooner or later, because I never asked her for any of the hundreds of thousands of my dad's dollars that she now had, that I was somehow independently wealthy and would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually hydrogen bomb this B*TCH when she started dating some new guy only 5 months after my dad was in the ground. And one time when I came home from college after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy-looking d-bag named Ivan, who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own house and that they owned it. I played along. Grace told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Ivan's cousin because I'm too old to play with video games. I don't even know this mother *Kerr, and you give him my PS4 to give away to some other *T who I also don't know. I quickly changed all my network passwords that same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said that she and Ivan were getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with life. I tell her that I graduated college and already secured employment with a local firm, and will soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled. Especially the part where it looks like I'll soon have a new place to live. Then in a patronizing way she tells me, "You always have a place in our house though, you are welcome to stay whenever you please." Thanks, Grace, really generous of you. What I really say is that I will probably have a new place in 3 months. She says that is wonderful because she intends to go to her homeland to have a wedding with Ivan and afterward have her honeymoon. She assures me it's a local affair, otherwise I'd invite you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulate her. She asks me if I can watch the house for her, watch my own house. Sure, what I really say is of course I will take care of the house. I am careful to not say, your house. She and her d-bag fiancé, who I am 100% sure is only there for Grace's money, go on their trip, and I immediately put out advertisements in rental websites offering to lease my house. I hire movers and have all of Grace's furniture and possessions boxed up and put into a storage rental facility. I retain all of my parents' furniture that they had before my dad met Grace. Locks changed. All of them. Within days, I am inundated with dozens of inquiries regarding my amazing, furnished house with fantastic views. I rent it to a wonderful young family. A barrister and his schoolteacher wife and their 2 preteen children. They pay me their first and last month's rent, and sign a lease for a year. I warn them about my crazy stepmom who thinks this is her house, but I present them with contact information to my lawyer, the same lawyer my dad retained, in case they need any assurance that I'm on the level. That I also give my lawyer the information about the storage facility, including the fact that I generously paid for months of storage in advance, which is a whole month longer than Grace's Czech honeymoon adventure. That I then found a great apartment in the city near my new place of work. There I met a woman in a restaurant I frequent at night after a long workday. We have been dating 6 months now and are engaged to be married. Grace of course tried to shriek and cause trouble when she realized she got kicked out of my house, but my lawyer quickly shut her mouth without my having to ever speak to her garbage face again. From what I hear, her and her trash husband left the country, and I assume they're blowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke like chavs usually become when they taste a little bit of what they think is the good life. So maybe Grace will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his money. Speaking of money, the house that I rent out is generating so much money that I not only am able to help pay for my cousin's college, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own, together with my fiancée. I love my job, but really, I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think, if Grace had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house, just to be a good sport. And definitely if she stayed the hell out of my room, but no, she had to act all proprietary, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift. Postscript. I bought another PS4, even though I didn't even use my old one that much. It didn't matter. It wasn't for Grace to give away. You don't give away other people's things. You give away your own things, which is why I chose to kick Grace out of my house. Because it's mine, and I decide who stays there.